is up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we are here with Dawson of The Ongoing Concept. It is great to be able to talk with you. Thanks for being here, man.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, anytime, man. Anytime. It is so great to be able to talk to you today. We got Again coming out at the very end of this month. This is fairly, I think it's fair to assume that this would be a concept album, and with, all the tracks having Again at the end of all their titles. But before we get into that, for people who haven't heard the full length album yet, do you feel that the first three singles that we got, Prisoner Again, Unwanted Again, and Feel Again, is a good representation of this whole album? Or sonic wise, there's a lot more to be heard and a lot more different things to discover?
Um, I think that those three songs, especially like the the comparison between Unwanted Again and Unwanted Again and Prisoner Again, like just the two different sides of the spectrum, I think our album kind of falls in between all of that. So there's a lot more to be shown. But we wanted to release Prisoner Again and then Unwanted Again kind of back to back to kind of showcase like a really heavy side, but then also show kind of the groovy poppy side. Uh, that way the audience would know, okay, well, we might be getting something in between of all of that too. So yes, there's a lot more to unpack, but I think those three songs really paint a good picture of what the album's going to be, or the rest of the songs will be.
Yeah. Now, you're probably going to get this question from every press outlet that's talking to you about this new album, but with Again being at every single title, is that representative in a way of something you were experiencing again and again and again in a way? Or, like, is this sort of like an underlying story in a way about experiencing a similar thing more than once or something like that?
Um, I mean, it kind of like when we first started writing the record, we didn't really know what we were going to do for like an album concept. And the more like actually when we started writing, we didn't even know if we were going to make a record. Because we were just trying to test the waters of writing again with the or writing new music with the members, the old members, my brothers and stuff. And then once we started writing, we started realizing like this really feels awesome. Like let's keep going. And we started realizing like halfway or so through the writing cycle, like we just enjoyed writing together, but then we also really wanted to make sure that the record would not be a brand new style of the ongoing concept. We wanted to make sure we were going back to our roots and stuff. And so here I am going through all of these like old sessions over and over again, like looking at like some of our old songs, going into Pro Tools and like, just seeing what we were doing to kind of get in the same headspace because we hadn't written in such a long time. And after a while, I started realizing like, I feel like I'm going back to the past again. And the word again just kept coming up over and over and over again. And I started realizing this is like a second wind of the ongoing concept. This is us coming back again and doing another record again. And it's like, it just started to make sense that we should just call the album Again. And then from there, the ideas of like how we wanted to put some of these songs together and kind of tip our hat to some of our older songs and put maybe some lyrics from previous songs into other songs and kind of create like part twos of everything. That was where the whole concept of Again came from. I think did I answer your question? That was a little
Perfectly,
long-winded.
perfectly. That was a good answer. Long answers always answer the question perfectly. But
Okay,
yeah,
sometimes I go on a tangent. I
yeah.
can't. I don't even remember what the question was.
Tangent.
So.
We are a tangent safe zone on this channel. But it's fair to say from what you were telling me, this isn't just like the follow up or the continuation of Places in a way. This almost does signify, even though you called it like a return to form or return to roots, this is sort of like a new era for the ongoing concept, right? It's not just a continuation.
Yeah, no, it's a new era. I mean, we've all grown up so much, and our views of music and our views of life have changed, and so that does play a huge part in how we write music now. But we were really trying to make sure that we weren't giving the audience just something that they were not going to vibe with, because our fans have been with us for over a decade now. We wanted to give them something that they could go, oh man, you brought back that saloon thrashiness vibe, or you brought back all the cool stuff from Handmade. Like we really wanted to make sure that we were still sticking with the ongoing concept style, but we're still progressing as a band. We're still trying new things, and I feel like our music is maybe a little more mature than it was 6 or 7 years ago. So, yeah, new things, but I still feel like we are able to find a happy medium of bringing our old stuff back, our
Does
old styles back, I guess.
does it ever start off with the making of any of your albums? Does it ever start off with like a preconceived vision in a way, or is your songwriting process a very experimental, sort of like rolling the dice or seeing what sticks sort of process?
Yeah, it's kind of like whatever sticks. Like I really, well, I don't really listen to music a lot. But when I do start writing, I really try to avoid all music in general. And if I do hear something new, I'm really only looking at like the mixing or like the style of things in that sense, opposed to like what type of music is like really popular for 2021 or 22 or 20. So when we start our albums out, I try to be as, you know, I try to keep myself out away from all of these distractions and just write what I think sounds cool. And I think my brothers and TJ and Andy kind of write the same way, where they really are just trying to write stuff that they think sounds cool, regardless of being influenced by anything. So we go in not knowing what the heck's going to happen. And a lot of times, I think that's the cool thing, is that we write songs that we would never expect to write because we're not really being influenced by any outside influences. I guess I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm trying
You
to
say,
word this
you
correctly,
say you
but
don't
uh,
listen to music that often, yet you have probably like the nicest studio setup of any Zoom interview I've done, with the guitars and banjo on the wall. You got a beautiful large diaphragm microphone right there. I assume you're in front of like a Pro Tools computer. I don't listen to music that often. I guess you definitely are in a room where it looks like a lot of it is made.
well, okay, I'll put it this way. I just got my Spotify app like 3 months ago for the first time because Solid State, our label, was like, "Hey, you should probably be part of the artist profile thing," and I'm like, "Oh shit, okay." So yes, I literally don't really listen to music, but I make music all the time. So I have bands come and record with me. I have my own studio, but I never listen to music in the car. I never listen to music on my leisurement time. And I don't know why. I prefer silence a lot of times, maybe because I'm always working on something musical. I also edit a lot of videos, so I'm constantly, dealing with editing and music in the videos. And I think some after a while, you start to get just tired of hearing music. I know it sounds really weird, but it's just kind of how life is. So, and
Understandably
I think
so.
it's what makes me appreciate music. When we start writing, it's like I've been away from it for so long that then I have so much more passion to it. When you're constantly listening to it and listening to it and listening to it, and then you're creating it, I kind of feel like there's no love for it anymore. At least to me, it's not how it is for other people, but for me, that's how I look at it.
Understandably so. As a vocalist in the band, in a way, and as a songwriter, have you always preferred to sort of like hear the music before lyrics ever come through fruition, or do you does a lyrical idea or a concept maybe help influence the sound of the music itself?
Sorry, can you say the first part of that one more
Yeah,
time?
have you always needed to hear the music to come up with lyrics, or could a lyrical idea help influence the sound of
Okay.
it?
Usually it's it's usually like the music that will inspire lyrics first. And the way that we do a lot of our stuff is we'll like write a song or write a cool little hook, chorusy type thing, and then I'll just like sing a bunch of random things over top. So I just get the phrasing correctly. So I'll just be like, dun, 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 and then I'll be like, that's really cool. Now I got to figure out what lyrics are going to go in that phrasing. So a lot of the times our songs, and I'm sure people would love to hear what these sound like when we're when we're writing our songs and recording them, up until almost the end of the recording process. What you're hearing is me and Kyle and TJ singing all these like random kind of scatting type words over top of everything without any lyrics yet, which is hilarious sounding.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we'll add some lyrics. And oftentimes, I would say I'm not as inspired by the lyrics. Like I never really know where the lyrics are going to go sometimes, because sometimes when we do start writing our choruses, I will just sing a random assortment of words and they'll sound really cool. The lyrics will sound really cool, but they won't make enough sense to make a whole song. So then we kind of tailor the words a little bit, and then we have to write a verse around the chorus that was randomly made up. So in some ways, it's all kind of like it just kind of comes out of nowhere, and then we have to build around it. I'm not sitting there with like a notepad and writing my thoughts down or my feelings down on paper to then record and write lyrics for. It's usually the opposite.
Have you do you prefer if like a listener is sort of like just as engaged in the lyricism and the meaning of the music as much as the music itself, or do you want to leave the music more open to interpretation?
I love leaving the music for interpretation. I think a lot of our lyrics are metaphorical, because I think like I just want everyone to feel something different per the person. So if these lyrics or this song makes you feel a certain way, I don't want it to be so direct that everyone knows, oh, well, this is the ongoing concepts, really sappy song about a girl. I want it to be like, oh, well, it could be about a girl, or it could be about just your relationship with your dog and how frustrating it is to have a dog, or you know what I mean? So we just try to be as like open ended as we can.
Yeah. Do you feel that like when a person interprets the material differently, that that adds another layer of meaning or adds another layer of context to the material itself in a way, or do you very much feel the same way about the song when you first wrote it, regardless of how old it is?
Oh yeah. Well, I don't really remember what we were even writing about half the time. But when someone comes to me and says that, like the one time our song "You Will Go" from our album Places, one of my friends hit me up and told me that because of that song, he reached out to his biological family, that he was adopted, and because of that song he actually reached out to his biological family. And I was like, I that's so cool, like the fact that that happened. I didn't even think about the lyrics or the way of that song making anyone feel that it would emotionally make you feel like you need to make that step. That's a huge step. So yeah, I mean, all the time people are telling me things about our music that I go, whoa, I didn't realize that that meant that to you, and that's a really cool feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. I've always said art is life, and when you bring it into the world, it can grow, it can develop, it could even sometimes eventually die. So, when it's living a life after you bring it into the world, it's going to make an impact one way or another.
Yes, totally.
In order to get like that inspiration and that creative energy, this is a debate I've been liking to have with artists. Is inspiration really something that could be sought out? Like, can you actually look for inspiration, or do you just kind of have to let it strike you?
um I well, it depends. I take a long time to write. Our records take a long time to write a lot of times because it takes a lot of inspiration, and forcing inspiration usually doesn't work for me. Now it can work for some people. Some people work very well when they're under pressure or when they're procrastinating and they have to get something done. I kind of like things to just happen as they will. And so a lot of times the inspiration will just happen because I happen to be driving down the road and I see a random animal, and the thing I don't know, like there's just it just never. I don't know how to explain it, but when I'm working, like when it's not the ongoing concept and I'm working for like the job that I work full time for, it's a different story because then it's like I'm working for other people. I'm not necessarily working for myself. And even though the projects mean something to me, this could be the same when I'm recording bands. When I'm recording a band, I can get inspired pretty easily because it's not attached to me as much, I guess. This is a tough one. I'm sorry.
No, it's all good.
I'm really trying to word this right. I would say that inspiration just does not come very naturally for me, but it depends on the person.
Yeah. I mean, it could
I'll
come
work with.
internally or externally. I feel like everybody's sources of inspiration is like a fingerprint, and therefore it identifies on its own.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
It just depends, man. I'm glad you asked that question because I am curious how it's very intriguing to see how other people work,
Yeah.
especially in the music industry and when it comes to like producing and recording bands and Hollywood too, with how people write movies and scripts and get that inspiration to do this and that. It's very intriguing because everyone has their own approach.
Of course, definitely. I want to go back a little bit deeper into the ongoing concept catalog because I think this is a big year for you guys. It does mark 10 years since your debut of Saloon. So, what
Yeah.
was the sort of minds? How would you say that the mindset of you as an artist sort of like evolved and changed over time, and what we would see in albums such as Handmade in Places and now with Again?
Man, when we were like when Saloon came out, God, man, we were so young. Uh, and I think we just wanted to be as crazy as possible. We were super into the Chariot and Let Live and like those really like performance style bands, and we wanted to bring as much energy to our music as we could. Uh, and that was great. That was awesome at the time. But the older we got and the sorer we got after each show, and just the dangers of doing flips off stage kind of morphed us into maybe calming things down, but still having that heavy intensity. And I think with like something like Handmade was weird too, because Handmade, that idea came out of nowhere. That was like, I don't even remember how that happened. We just thought, hey, we should just build our own instruments, and then we ended up doing it. And then Places was a very mature, kind of sad album. But I don't know, man. It's like there's just a lot that's happened in 10 years. And of course, the break that we've had has really changed us all as people. I'm married now. My brother Parker's getting married in July. My brother Kyle is married and has 2 kids. Like TJ is doing his thing. TJ actually has had a pretty crazy year with his I don't know if you heard about the brain surgery that he had last year. It was really intense. So he had some major things happen, and it's crazy to think back 10 years ago we were writing Saloon or coming out with Saloon, and here we are 10 years later doing again, and it feels like a whole different universe,
Dude,
a whole different time period.
I
It's
know.
crazy.
Look, I completely relate. 10 years ago, I was a freshman in college. I was 19 years old, and now I'm pushing 30 this year. So like, it's crazy to see how much can happen in 1 year, let alone 10. So
It yeah.
it definitely like if you were to play those songs off of Saloon though, like live, if you were to revisit those songs, would it almost kind of put you back in the mindset of who you were 10 years ago, or being that the only way of moving through life is forward, maybe you kind of channel a different emotion or energy, or almost kind of even a different perspective when revisiting those older songs?
Um, I mean, when we play Saloon or Cover Girl live, like we're actually preparing because we're going to be starting to play our full length record Saloon for the 10 year all the way through. Like we're trying to do like a 10 year thing. So we're going to audio feed in July, and we're going to play front to back Saloon. So playing those songs, those old songs live, we go just as crazy as we did before. It instantly brings us back to that same time when we were jamming those songs before we got signed to, to Solid State, because we had that record all basically finished, and we were playing a lot of those songs live before we got picked up by a label. And I can still feel all of that like crazy energy that we had, and like that, and like the audience and the way that everyone is just going crazy. Like all of that comes back when we get on stage. So it kind of feels like yesterday when we're on stage, but it feels like a million years ago when I'm sitting and talking about it and thinking about it, and then also going back into the Pro Tools sessions on my old computer and like diving into all the things that were happening as far as like how we recorded drums or recorded guitars. That literally feels like 100 years ago.
It's amazing how it could just. I've always said like a song is almost kind of like a time machine in a way, and how it could take you back to so many different spaces and tests and times.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
Sorry, I got like 6 texts
No
all at
worries.
the same.
No worries. No worries. Um.
I took the day off, partially the day off of work today,
Yeah.
to do, because I have yours, and then I have 2 others after this, so it's kind of like a long day of
Yeah.
talking. But
Yeah. No
I'm
worries.
just
No
making
worries.
sure there's
Yep.
no crazy.
Yep. No
But
worries.
anyway,
I just have two more questions for you.
sure.
But
Yeah, yeah.
and it does kind of go back into your live presence actually, because when you are playing live, is there at all maybe a similar energy that you channel into your live presence as you do in your songwriting? Is there any similarity between those two arts, or are they completely separate forms of self-expression?
Um. Well, I it's to an extent this it's one and the same. Like for I guess a good example would be Kyle, my brother, who's the main screamer. When he records vocals, he gets all sweaty, takes his shirt off, starts running around behind me, like over here, just running back and forth with microphone and getting all crazy and hyped up like he's actually in a show. Um, and and he just so for him, it's constantly just like he wants to live the stage life, live the craziness, and then record that and try to bring as much of a real raw vibe as he can. For me, I tend to sit down and kind of do my recording this way. So I think about the stage usually after the fact. So they're not really connected for me, but for Kyle it is. I think TJ's similar to me. So yeah, I mean, if there's a point where we are thinking about the stage. When I write music, though, I'm constantly thinking about the visual side of things. So I'm thinking about how this would look in a music video, and so I'm constantly like cinematically kind of writing our songs because I'm like, how could this music video look super cool with this chorus and blah blah blah. So I think more on that side of the spectrum, I guess.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, like I've always said, like, is there anything creative about playing live in a way? Because you are just in a way replicating the songs that you wrote and bringing them into a live setting. So I've always
Yeah.
wondered if there's a creative aspect behind playing live, or is it's just an expression aspect.
Yeah, it depends. I know bands like I can't speak for them, but I picture bands like Chariot, for example, like them they write for the stage all the time. Like I just picture that being a thing, but I don't know if that's how they do it. So
Yeah.
it just depends, man.
Fair enough.
It's all subjective.
And the final question I wanted to ask you is being that the ongoing concept originated in Idaho, I could feels good to finally cross another state off the list. I'm trying to check them all
Oh,
off the
nice.
list. Um,
Yeah.
but the only other band I could think of, and I don't even know if all of their members are from Idaho, but Demon Hunter I think is the only band that I think of that came from Idaho. And again, I don't know if it was just Ryan Clark or anybody, but what is there a sort of scene from the ongoing concept that the ongoing concept sort of cut their teeth in Idaho? I was interviewing the band Earth Groans, and they're from South Dakota, and they were telling me that like a lot of people in like the midwestern region of America, especially for this sort of hardcore metalcore style, people do tend to travel a lot within each other. So I was just wondering how the scene is in sort of your home turf.
I didn't know Demon Hunter was from Idaho, actually.
I gotta
I've
do
never
I
heard.
gotta do some research on that. I could have sworn I heard it, but it was just like a fact I did on the top of my head. I also
It's
Googled last minute about that, so
Yeah, and the thing about Idaho is we live at the very top of Idaho, Coeur d'Alene. So if you see Idaho, it looks like a panhandle, and we're way up here, and Canada is like right here. So we're only about 100 miles from Canada. But Boise is all the way south of Idaho, and it's about an 8-hour drive. And so Coeur d'Alene and Idaho, or sorry, Coeur d'Alene and Boise are like so far apart that we don't really talk much. So there's tons of bands in like the Boise area that I've never heard of that are big and done all this stuff. But here in Coeur d'Alene, we're so far up north and kind of in our own little thing that yeah, there's not a whole lot going on here. In fact, I have never really played a show in Coeur d'Alene since we've been a band. We've done a couple house shows here and there, but there's no venues in Coeur d'Alene to play. And so we actually travel over to Washington and Spokane. It's about 40 minutes away. And that's really where we cultivated our local scene of people. And we started playing shows in like 2009. Um, and the scene in Spokane's really, really awesome. They're just great people. Everyone seems to love each other, and they're very dedicated and very um, they just love to love on other bands. And so bands can go into hiatus for 10 years and come back and play a reunion show, and there'll be tons of people that show up. It's just a very healthy community of people. So I would say, to answer your question, I think I am. There's not a lot going on in Coeur d'Alene, but there's definitely some stuff going on in Spokane, and it's awesome.
I mean, I feel like it maybe not in your hometown, but you're like on the border. I mean, Canada, anywhere you go in Canada, there's going to be a fantastic metal scene, and then you could just go either east or west, and it seems like it seems like you have an easy way to find other scenes.
Yeah, yeah, it's weird though. Like our best scenes are East Coast, like Florida and North Carolina and even New York. I feel like all of those places love us more than the West Coast, which always sucks because it's literally like a 3-day drive to get to get there. So we don't have the luxury of just getting over there really quickly to play. But I think people like us more on the East Coast than here,
Yeah.
but that's okay. I don't really mind.
Well, we bring it. We're a bunch of maniacs. That's why. We in New
Well, and the
York.
cool thing too, yeah, you guys are crazy. And the cool thing is like all of your cities are so close. So like the East Coast is always our favorite time of touring because you get 2 hours to go to each show each night instead of the West and Midwest where every show is about 8 hours apart. So you're just driving and driving and driving to get to the next city. But on the East Coast, it's just everything's so compact and close. I love it. It's great.
Yeah. Until you get to Florida, then it takes like 2 days just to leave Florida. But
Yeah, Florida is a whole different world for sure.
Yeah.
But they have some crazy shows. We've had some of our craziest shows in Florida.
death metal capital of the world. But
Yeah.
so before we
That's
go, I want to thank you so much for your time today, for such an awesome conversation, and most of all, thank you for some epic new music. Just what else can we be expecting from the ongoing concert in the near future in terms of touring? If you're allowed to say, of course, this will be uploaded by midnight. So
Yeah. Dude, thanks for having me on. We have a couple shows coming up in about 3 weeks. We're doing like a little album release mini tour. We're starting in Spokane, going to Portland and Boise. So check our website out for that stuff. And then we are going on tour, a mini kind of routing tour to get to audio feed in at the end of June/July with Lightworker and Bloodline. So that'll be really fun. That's about all we have right now. We're still trying to figure out the rest of our year, but that's what we're doing. And then as far as music goes, we're just wanting to keep creating content. So I would say maybe look out for some future music videos and other types of stuff. We might do some playthrough videos this time. We've never done those before. We're just trying to show the world what we have and kind of change things up a little bit than what we've done in the past. So yeah, I would just say stay tuned for more content.
hell yeah. Well, thank you so much, everybody. The ongoing concept. Be sure to check out their new album again, coming out March 31st. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, Alex.